Alright, so in light of that kid basically having his whole life flushed down the toilet, which his GoFundMe is in the link to the description, he's probably not going to win this case. He's probably screwed, but I'd at least like to give him a fighting chance because I believe if we gave every single person that was fighting the ATF a fighting chance, it would make their battles harder, and attorneys would bring up much harder things to answer, and over time we might be able to get them to at least be like, okay, we better make sure we got a rock solid case before we go in. And that would just be one step in inhibiting them to just go after people. So I believe anybody that gets attacked by the ATF, unless there's some other crime like, drugs or child porn or something like that, we should support them and help them fight. Well, in light of that, because he had so little information on YouTube, and the fact that the feds showed up, one of the options of how he caught their attention is he may have been asking people uncomfortable questions. Now, he never asked me any, and I don't know of anyone he asked any, but it was one of the things that popped into my head, like, how the hell did he get flagged? So, in light of that, I do need to make a video. Now, this video is not about any in particular people. I love you guys. You're a great audience. Don't think this video is about you. I'm just throwing off general questions and stuff, because over my years on YouTube, I've been asked a couple of questions where I'm like, dude, come on, don't say, especially not on an open platform. Yeah, you might think it's a private message, but honestly, if you've asked other people, like, everything you put out there is recorded. So, there are a couple of things you shouldn't ask and you should do your own independent research on in case you're really curious about a topic. Now, let's go over a couple of example questions. I just randomly picked these. Again, they're not about any in particular person at all whatsoever. They're just general questions I've seen or have heard of that I want to warn you about. Because you got to remember, you may have been watching me for years. You may know me very well. The first time I meet you is the first message you send me, and it's through text. I know nothing about you, so regardless, I'm going to dodge the question anyway, but it's just better if the question isn't asked at all, because they're just things that you don't want to be saying, especially through some sort of messenger platform, because that's the kind of crap that'll get you flagged. Now, I should probably explain why it's relevant, why I just first met you in that comment, like what I'm talking about, because otherwise you're just not going to understand. So when I say I just met you, I treat every message that comes in as if I was talking to a federal agent, because on 2 occasions already, and I'm a relatively small channel, I've either had federal agents or activist groups try to take me down. The first one, they sent in an actor pretending to be an underage girl. Morons. Like, that was some of the worst acting I've ever seen. Like, by like the 3rd message, I'm like, Fed. And yeah, that's exactly what it turned out to be. They were trying to get me to hit on this underage girl. I'm not sure exactly what the charges would have been for something like that. Probably like soliciting sex or something. Anyway, terrible actor, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because why in the hell would I hit on a person that makes it overly clear they're under the age of 18? It's just retarded. Do you guys think I'm stupid or something? Anyways, the second attempt, I'm positive this one was a federal agent, trying to get me to sell them machine gun parts. Like parts they could openly buy on the internet, totally legal, but because they told me they wanted to make a machine gun with it and buy my parts for it, well, that now classifies it as a machine gun part because there's intent behind it, and then they were trying to get me to sell it to them. The whole conversation was just awkward. Because I'm like, dude, you can just go on the internet and buy it. Why would you want to pay me double what it's worth on the internet? And I was kind of clowning on him a little bit. Either which way, that was also a federal agent. So 2 times I've been attacked. And since the beginning of my channel, I automatically assume every person that's messaging me is a federal agent. So that's why I say that, because when you start messaging me, I'm like, Fed. Until they prove otherwise and they don't ask illegal questions or anything like that and the conversation is totally clean. But even if it is clean for a long time, you start asking edgy questions, I'm like, oh, Fed. So, that's what I mean by, like, I don't get to know you. We're not sitting across the kitchen table where I can see eye to eye with you and read you and understand that you are truly just looking for information. I see a federal agent on his keyboard like, when's the last time you created a destructive device? Can I buy a machine gun for you? Do you think I'm hot? Oh, don't forget I'm under the age of 18. Like, that's what I see on my end, is just a bunch of feds messaging me. Now, I understand you're not feds, but that's why I'm very delicate with my conversations. Like, everything I pretend is a court transcript. Maybe someday I'll screw that up and you feds will get me, but I'm pretty careful about it. Like, I automatically assume that if I'm messaging you, you're recording it and putting together a transcript for court. First example question. Is it true explosives are made of accelerants and oxidizers? That would be an okay question. That would be something you could ask. Obviously, explosives really ain't my thing, so it's going to be a short conversation, but it's probably going to go something along the lines of, yes, it is crazy how just two chemicals can create such a reaction, and then we'd probably go on to a conversation of like splitting the atom, like how insane that is and the technology behind it. That would be an okay question to ask. What is not an okay question to ask is, what is the exact makeup of C4? How exactly do you get AMPHO? Where does AMPHO come from? Stuff like that, like direct questions, are things you just don't ask people, especially not creators. If you want to know the answer to those questions, and I am putting everybody in good faith and just assume it's for educational purposes and they're just curious about the topic together, and those are completely normal questions to ask, you just don't ask people like me because we're creators. I'm sure every single message that's ever sent to me is recorded by the feds, and that question as a standalone without context is going to look really bad. The feds are going to look at that and be like, hey, has anybody ever looked into Josh Jones? He's asking some very, very specific questions about explosives. We should probably go take a look at him. So it's those direct questions. You just don't ask it, especially not to, I can't think of a better word, so lack of a better term, public figure like me. Because I guarantee every question you send to me is intercepted by the feds and they read it just looking for people. Never ask direct questions on that unless you have your explosive license or you're about to go work for a mine or something like that. The point is, stuff like that, you just got to do your own independent research. It's just bad because the feds are going to see that out of context. It's going to look bad on you, and it's likely to get you flagged. Acceptable question number 2. How does machine gun timing work? That is a very acceptable question, and it's a good question because mechanics, especially on machine guns, they're just fascinating. So wondering exactly how it knows when to drop the hammer is a good question. What's not a good question is... One second. Sorry about that, I had to shut off the air conditioning because we have a really big unit in this building and it's very loud. What's not a good question is, hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to convert my AR-15 or AK-47 or fill in the blank to whatever gun you're talking about into a machine gun, what exactly parts would I need and how exactly would I know where to drill the hole? Yes, I understand. You are looking at it as just educational purposes, something you're curious about, but that, as a message, the feds would look at that and be like, dude's building a machine gun. There are plenty of great books on the topic. Most of the information is already on Google. You don't have to ask it in an indirect question then. You can search that. That's just not something you ask. Machine gun timing, wondering about that particular topic, yeah, that's totally cool, man. Asking specific questions on where exactly a pin would need to go for an auto sear or something like that, I just can't get into that stuff. I can, but it's not something you would want to see a bunch of messages asking about, especially if you own the gun specifically that you're asking about. I get it. You just want to know. You think the mechanics are fascinating? I do too. I really do. I love how all the parts interact with each other. I love understanding how they work. That's just not something I can get to in a private message. Next question. Is it true you can make a solvent trap into a silencer? That is a great question. That is a question I can answer. My answer will be something along the lines of, yes, it is true. If you would like, I can send you a link to the form that you need to fill out with the ATF. Just take that, your fingerprint card, and a photo of yourself, send it in. They'll give you a tax stamp, and then you are good to go. Like, that is specifically a very good question. I am totally comfortable with answering because I feel like I'm helping you. I'm explaining, what you have to do legally to get it done. What I can't do really is be like, yes, you're going to take part X and you're going to modify it in this particular way and then illegally attach it to your firearm to shoot. Which brings me into not the good question with solvent trap. Number one, where can I buy it? Because honestly, the companies come up and they go down. I have no understanding of exactly how the feds determine that company is okay to sell a solvent trap, but that company is not. Like, I don't know. The best thing I can recommend from you is buy it from Walmart. That's the easiest way to go. But again, there's just so many options out there. It's specific to firearm. And then if you buy it with the intent to make it a silencer, you're committing a crime because then you are buying silencer parts because there's intent behind it. To the best of my knowledge, and I'm not a lawyer, the only way you can do it legally is you buy a solvent trap to legitimately be a solvent trap. And then when you get it at home, you're like, hey, this kind of sucks as a solvent trap. I'm going to attach a Form 1 to it and make it into a silencer. And it's like the whole chicken and the egg thing. What came first? Well, that's the same predicament you're in with solvent traps. What came first? The intent for me to make a silencer or my Form 1? So it gets really weird. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not giving legal advice. And if you take legal advice from me, you're stealing. I think, again, this is a think. I think you can find one on the internet that you want to make into a silencer, apply for your Form 1, get your Form 1, and then purchase it. I think that's legal. Again, I don't know. Or you buy the solvent trap as a solvent trap. It's 100%. You have no intentions of making it anything but a solvent trap. And when it gets to your house, if you discover it sucks as a solvent trap, then you get your Form 1, and then you can legally make it a silencer. Again, this is a legal minefield, so that's why I don't really get into those specific questions, because there's no real right answer for it. Because I don't even think a lawyer could tell you the proper way to turn a solvent trap into a silencer, because it's a legal minefield. It's the chicken and the egg. What came first? I don't know. Next one. Can you make a binary trigger? That is an acceptable question, and my answer would be yes. If you play around with a 3-round burst kit, you can modify that to perform exactly the same as a binary trigger. What's not an acceptable question is, how do I convert a 3-round fire control group into a binary trigger? Not so much for the legal side of things, because there is a whole legal side of things that it's complicated. But if it's made in a way so it's really a binary trigger, you shouldn't have any problems with the ATF. Again, not a lawyer, but because that product already exists on the market and you're making the exact same product, you should be okay. However, where that became a problem is when I did a video, just doing a 60,000 foot view of how to make a binary trigger. I got called by the company and they basically informed me, and I'm paraphrasing here, and this is not what they said, I'm just paraphrasing and reading between the lines, that hey, our product is so well patented, if you don't stop, we're going to have our patent lawyers come after you. And it's true, I looked at their patent and they have everything. Their patent goes great into depth. So yeah, I could probably legally tell you how to convert it into a binary trigger, but for all I know is you could be one of their patent lawyers trying to set me up for a lawsuit. So I just can't touch that question. They left the video I put out there alone. They didn't sue me for that. But that's as far as I'm willing to go on that topic. Again, after looking at their patent and then getting a phone call from them, that's just not something I'm going to touch with a 10-foot pole. I'm just setting myself up for a lawsuit. I can't go into depth at all. Not even a little bit of exactly how to make your own binary trigger. And that's just some example questions. It's the real specific things. Like, before you write your question, imagine in your head, like, okay, the ATF doesn't know me at all. He is a public figure, so they're probably going to intercept my question and read everything I say. What would this look like out of context? Is this enough to get me flagged and ultimately start an investigation on me? Because again, I believe most of you guys are just curious on the knowledge itself. I love the knowledge. I love understanding how things operate. But phrase it in a proper way to where you can't get flagged for it. Because it just looks bad. You send a lone question out there. Hey, if I wanted to convert my SKS to a machine gun, how exactly do I do it? That's just not a question you want out there. Now you go and buy a book, How to Convert My SKS to a Full Auto. All they're seeing is you're buying a book. Kind of an edgy book, but you're still buying a book. It's not you specifically saying, hypothetically speaking, if I converted my SKS to a machine gun, how exactly would I do it? If you're getting the difference here, just like I said, this video isn't targeting any specific person or anything like that. This is just stuff I've seen come up in the past where I'm like, oh, dude, come on, don't say that. Don't. But I love you guys. I do. You're my audience. Like, you're awesome. I just don't want to have you get investigated for something and have your house completely tore apart just because you worded something poorly to a public figure. Anyway, I think that's about all for examples. Because, I mean, if you can't get the message from the examples I gave, then you're not going to give the message even if I give 3,000 examples. So, just understand, I've never met you before. Like, you may have followed me for years. You may have a really good feel for my personality and everything. The first interaction I've ever had with you is this question. And the first time the ATF has ever heard of you is probably your question. So keep it clean. Anyway, thank you for watching. Definitely support that kid's Patreon. His life is over. And I truly believe if we support every single person the ATF is fighting and we make it really hard for them to win cases, they're probably still going to screw that kid over. He's like 18 years old. His life just started and now it's over. So that's why I picked that particular case. But anyway, I believe strongly that if we supported every single person fighting the ATF and made all their wins very, very, very hard, one, it would make them less likely to try to go after people because they know they're going to be in a hell of a battle. So before they go after someone, they're going to make sure they got all their I's dotted, all their T's crossed. It's a perfect case, which I'm hoping will stop them from just randomly harassing people trying to do a fishing trip. And, you know, maybe some attorney asks the right question in front of the right judge and they get found unconstitutional. We have a better chance of that happening if we have more good attorneys lined up with every single ATF case. But anyway, thank you for watching. Like the support channel, got my Patreon right there. Also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those links, doing the Amazon shopping you're going to do anyway, I had a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.